Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. It's great to see everyone coming through. Thank you for coming and joining me today. My name's Harry, so I head up the digital function here at Understanding Recruitment, work solely across the charity sector. So going to be running through digital talent report for last year, seeing what we've found, key trends, everything to do with kind of like salary reports, everything based on kind of like what we found from LinkedIn. Benefits that people are looking for as well. So we're going to run through a lot of stuff, but it's great to see a lot of people coming through. Just let me know where's everyone coming from. What you can do is just type in the comments, and I'll see it all come through. What we'll do is we'll just wait a couple of minutes as well for people to join and come through, and then we will get started. But yeah, there's a lot to run through. Excited to get it all across. Hopefully it's useful. As I said, it's last year was a hell of a year. There's a lot that went on, a lot that didn't go on. So keen to get that across to everyone and answer any questions that anyone has. Been speaking with a lot of people since and throughout last year as well. So yeah, looking forward to get into it. But yes, like I said, just waiting a little bit for people to start joining, and then we'll get cracking. Lovely. So we will get started then. In terms of, as I said, what we're going to run through. This is the talent report, salary report for what we've seen across the charity and not-for-profit space across the last year. So everything that we're going to discuss, like I said, is going to be around who the top charities are that have been hiring, location of where everyone's based, and where the top digital talent is from. Salary reports as well, in terms of what different organizations are paying, what we've seen in terms of what the different roles are as well. So we work all the way from, officer, junior, first jobber, that sort of thing, all the way up to director level. So there's obviously quite a stark difference within the charity sector, but also across the rest of the different sectors as well, private and public. So it's interesting to see how the sector compares to those as well, and definitely be running through that as well. So we'll get started then. So in terms of what we've seen over the last year, you can see we have seen a massive surge in demand for digital. This has been driven by quite a few different factors. I think the main thing is, it's exciting to see that a lot of the sector are going through digital transformation projects. Digital transformation, and that term has been thrown about a lot, and I know it is very broad, but in terms of what that means within the sector, a lot have gone through website transformation projects, whether it be kind of like CRM migrations. It's something that has been needed, and there are obviously a lot of constraints that come with that. However, the massive thing is that charities have understood that the demand is there, and they need to upskill and bring on people within the digital space to enhance in terms of what they're doing and push everything forward. So in terms of 2023 alone, we placed 56 digital professionals across not-for-profits. That was 47% increase from the last year, which is crazy, considering that 2022 was probably one of the best markets that we'd ever seen. That just goes to show how fast the charity sector is moving and progressing, and realizing that this is what they need to do. yeah, they're embracing in terms of kind of like what is needed and what is required in digital strategies, and pushing that forward. So it is really, really great to see. So yeah, as I said, it's great to see that it's a massive increase from the previous years as well, which was, to be honest, with you all, it's is a bit of a shock. So if we move down a little bit, we can see that in terms of, there's a few stats here. So 926 professionals in the UK across the charity sector, on LinkedIn, of course, working across digital, when we actually made this report. So quite substantial. I think there's a lot of talent out there, and we will get into where everyone is based, and how that's kind of scattered across the UK as well. But I think a massive thing here, and a massive stat, the one in the middle right here, is 58% of digital professionals are in the UK across the sector, across the charity sector, are female, which is a stark difference to, I guess, the private sector and the public sector as well, which is fantastic to see, with only 42% being male. So yeah, that's a massive stat right there, and it's great across digital to see that, and it should be the case across every other sector as well. Equally, I think in terms of the median tenure in years across digital for on average is 1.4 years. So professionals within digital across the sector like to move on average around after about a year and a bit, a year and 4 months. I think that is changing a lot. It used to be where we see a lot of digital professionals staying within an organization, especially the sector, which is such an amazing industry to work in, staying for a lot longer. I think what is changing that, and what we've seen from across the last year, is the fact that there's a lot more project work. There's a lot more projects on the go in terms of, like I said, the digital transformation projects, whereby they need someone to come on board for a certain amount of time, push them forward in that respect, and then I guess move on to the next step. So it's not always the case, but that's definitely what we've seen, and probably why we're seeing that average. So yeah, that is it's quite interesting to see. So yeah, if we move down, and we get onto some key trends in terms of what we've seen across the last year. So I would say that across what we've seen across the sector, charities and not-for-profits, we're going through a massive shift. We have seen from COVID, obviously everyone working remotely and moving to predominant remote working. And that has meant, 100% from home, not coming into the office, that sort of thing. I think, to be honest with you, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree, a lot of people are getting a little bit sick of that. Although it's great, and there's been a lot of positives to remote working, and how the sector has managed to embrace that and move forward digitally in that respect. I think now it's getting to the point now where a lot of people do prefer coming into the office a bit more, working in a bit more of a hybrid way. In terms of what we've seen, in terms of what remote versus hybrid and what that means in today's market, remote very rarely means 100% from home, never showing face, never coming into the office or anything like that. It's very, very rare. Hybrid is more so once or twice a week in the office, and remote, going back to that, is more so once a month, once a quarter, coming in for key meetings, that sort of thing. Which is, again, they're both great working models, I think. But I think what we've seen is a big shift from remote to hybrid, which is natural, and it is great to see. Again, the option is still there, I'd say, for that organisations are offering, and I think it is integral and is important for organisations to realise this, that they have to offer you and talent the option to do that. So yeah, that's a massive thing. I think what comes with that is constraint to the candidate pool that we see. So if you are shifting from remote to a hybrid environment, that means that we're cancelling out and we're restricting those candidates that are looking for solely remote work, or maybe are happy with coming into the office once a month. Maybe they don't live in and around London, which we will get into in terms of is pretty much the tech hotspot within the UK. So there's something else to kind of food for thought on that respect. So yeah. I think in terms of fully remote working, again, it attracts more and a higher caliber of candidate as well, which is great. So I think historically, charities have looked for specific charity experience, which is great. Of course, I think the charity sector and not-for-profits, they work very differently to other corporate organisations in the private sector and that sort of thing. They have different systems that they use. So it's natural that a lot of charities are looking for that. However, I think there's been a massive shift in organisations actually wanting to hire candidates from outside of the sector because they work in a different way. And maybe it's a more fast-paced way, or just in a different way, and they can bring different ideas, which is fantastic. And it's something that we've seen. And again, it opens up that candidate pool as well. So it's not the case anymore, which is brilliant. So as I said, there's moving on to kind of like the more transitioning from those older systems that the charity sector is seeing. Although that a lot of the time you'd want someone who has maybe had that experience with, let's say, maybe a specific CRM within the sector, whether it be care, thank you, those sorts of ones, and actually transitioning over to more functional systems, for example, Salesforce and Dynamics, which is what we've seen. I think a lot of the time you need someone who has that experience and open to someone from outside of the sector who has still gone through that and still migrated over to these bigger, more functional and effective systems, who can kind of push them forward and bring new ways of working, which is brilliant. Another example of that as well is a big one within Google Analytics, the transition from 360 to GA4 and Universal Analytics to GA4, which is obviously all complete now. So again, that's another kind of massive thing that we've seen. But yeah, if we move down a little bit, we've seen that. I think a big thing is that candidates are looking to enhance their skills and their skill set as well, and that's a massive thing that has been a pushing factor for candidates. So location, this is where it's very interesting to see where digital talent is located throughout the UK. I think it's a no-brainer that London is the tech hotspot of the UK. A lot of the organisations that we work with within the sector and just in general are based in London. And I think that's why it's so integral for those to be open to that more hybrid or more remote aspect to working, because although the majority of candidates that we've seen and majority of professionals are based in London, there's still so much up north. For example, we can see Glasgow, Edinburgh, Manchester, which we'll see as well. But yeah, we've seen 410 based in London, 43 in Bristol, 32 in Manchester, 21 in Edinburgh, and 18 in Glasgow. It's like where the biggest kind of hotspots are. So again, although the majority are based in London, you are reducing and restricting yourself to those professionals that are based in the Midlands or up north or wherever it may be within the UK. So it's quite interesting to see, to be honest with you. And like I said, it goes back to that remote aspect and being open to accepting candidates from other places outside of the UK, outside of London. So yeah, I think that a lot of organisations have struggled as well with candidates, working in other places. I think the majority of organisations in London prefer that and are moving to that hybrid way of working. We always try and advise anyone that we work with to bear that in mind, that it's the sector is, and we'll get into kind of like salaries and what is on offer and that sort of thing later on. But it's always integral to keep in mind that we can't compete with other corporate organizations when it comes to salary and that sort of thing. So the key thing to bear in mind is the other factors that come with a role. So it's not obviously all about salary. It's about the working arrangement, the benefits, which obviously we'll get into. But that working arrangement is massive, and it's so integral. So that's it's something to think about. So moving on then, in terms of what we've seen, the top employers have been in the sector. We can see some great names here. We've worked with a lot of them as well. You can see the Prince's Trust, RSPCA, NSPCC, Age UK, RNIB, Which, Shelter, and National Trust. These are just to name a few. These are the main ones that I think, again, it's great to see how they are shifting towards bringing on digital talent and digital candidates and professionals rather to push forward in terms of what they're doing. And that brings us back to the whole digital transformation piece whereby they are pushing that massively, and the requirement is obviously there. So it shouldn't have taken, a digital transformation project or that sort of thing to need this sort of talent and skill set within an organization. And when we talk about digital, there's so many different aspects, so many different job titles and so many different roles within that, whether it be digital marketing, social media, paid media, whether it be analytics, whether it be digital project managers, product managers, website. There's so many. I know outside of the sector, digital encompasses a lot more, but I think there's so many aspects within an organization that are so important. I think something that's massive is the marketing side of things, digital marketing, social. We've seen the impact of having a strong social presence, and I know a lot of organizations are working towards that. There's loads that I can that spring to mind. I think a lot of you, there's one actually that I will mention, RSPB. I'm sure I don't know if anyone's here from there, but in terms of that, they are absolutely smashing it when it comes to their social channels. And if anyone's seen their TikTok, it's something that it's really engaging. They do kind of something called like Bird of the Month, for example, or Bird of the Week rather, and they make it really, really engaging. It's something that I think a lot of charities can learn from. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, it's so important that you have that digital marketing foundation and also the analytical side of things to back it up. So it's really great to see that a lot of organizations are hiring talent and digital talent, which is fantastic. But yeah, if we move on then and we move a little bit further down, we move on to the benefits, which I think is massively important. As I mentioned, we can't compete when it comes to salary. The sector quite simply cannot compete with the corporate world, private sector. It's just not a thing. However, what we always try and say, and we will never come to anyone and say we need more money, because that's not something that we have, and we appreciate that, and we acknowledge that. So what can we do to I guess reinforce a package and make someone or I guess aid someone to, or help someone to make that decision and say, do you know what, actually I'm really happy with this. So in terms of what we've seen, the standard kind of things in terms of like pension contributions, so like 8% pension contributions, 25 days holiday plus bank holidays. A lot of organizations do have 20, so that's quite good. Again, quite standard, but it's great. A lot of organizations in the sector I've seen there's a lot that have more than that as well. I think that the fact that is the case, I think a lot of organizations, it being the charity sector and a caring sector for a lot of different causes, they put the workforce and employers rather at the forefront of everything that they're doing, which is fantastic. So things like flexibility, and that sort of thing is what they want to offer. So a few more things then in terms of healthcare, gym memberships, which again, you can see in the graph below, it's something that is very prominent in what people are looking for. Dental coverage, complimentary lunches, which is really nice touches as well. But yeah, if you look at the graph that we've collated here from a digital survey that we carried out across the UK, again, it extends beyond the charity sector, but this is exactly what people are looking for. So gym memberships and healthcare, those two I think are massive. I think gym goes for itself. I think when it comes to, if we take it back to lockdown and the pandemic, a lot of people transitioned to bettering themselves fitness wise and going out for runs and doing workouts in their garden and that sort of thing. So that has stayed with us, and it's always been obviously an important factor to a lot of people. However, what we've seen over the past year is a massive thing that people look for, candidates look for. So that's something to bear in mind. Equally, healthcare, like I said, going back to that side of things, with COVID, it's so integral to have that, which as I said, it's nearly 25% each for that, which is really great to see. So what are the driving factors, and what are, I guess, the talent? What's the market looking for in a new job? So the key things that we've seen are seeking an environment and seeking something that it encompasses inclusivity, flexibility in terms of working arrangement, which I'll get into. Those are massive, what people are looking for, especially within the sector. I don't think the charity sector hasn't a real issue when it comes to inclusiveness and that sort of thing. I think a lot are doing many things to make sure that their workforce and their employees are as inclusive as possible, or they are being inclusive as possible rather, and have like a diverse employees and that sort of thing. So, in a diverse environment, which is fantastic to see. The flexibility side of things, as I said, when it comes to working arrangements, hybrid working, that sort of thing. For example, core hours, which we'll get into as well in a moment, but that side of things, having the ability to actually start the day a little bit earlier and finish a little bit earlier, or start a little bit later and finish a little bit later. That having that flexibility is a massive perk, and it's definitely something that a lot of people are looking for. Aside from that, opportunities to grow, that's something massive. I think the sector does and is starting to offer a lot more in terms of professional development and growth, especially with all the different projects that they have going on at the moment. Digital transformation projects, I said, I'll be saying that a lot. It's something that people are looking for a lot, and being in an environment, inclusive environment such as the charity sector, is something that a lot of people are looking for. So whether it be developing in a new skill, for example, learning GA4, learning Google Analytics, learning that side of things, is something that is massively looked for, which is fantastic. So what can employers do in terms of employer value propositions? What can they do to actually make it effective and make it so that people do want to join? So the big things here are salary, obviously, is a big thing. However, I think in the sector, it's less that. I think to be as competitive, it's always important to benchmark and be as competitive as possible. Within the sector, like I said, it's not something that will be a comparison across other sectors or anything like that. But that's obviously a big thing that people are looking for. Working arrangements, as I said, is a massive thing. And, although we can't offer as much as other corporate organizations in terms of salary, we can make up for it in terms of being flexible in the days that you come in, not being rigid with it, and working hours, that sort of thing. And then equally, the overall cause pushing that forward. When it comes to, for example, interview processes, it's very much overlooked that although an employer is looking and the hiring managers are looking for the right person, and it very much so can be a bombardment of just questions and answers and questions and answers and that sort of thing. It's so important to push the cultural side of things and equally the cause of the organization within that process to push that forward. So it's something that's massive and something that everyone should be doing. So yeah, if we move on then, we're talking about hybrid working and what we've said. I think the majority of the sector have embraced that more hybrid work approach. I think a lot, that's to go to say, I guess, in terms of a lot of people that are looking for roles on the market are looking for that as well. And what that means, as I mentioned, is 2 days in the office, once or twice a week in the office is what we tend to see within different organizations, which is perfect, and that is what it should be. It shouldn't be any more than that, I'd say. Otherwise, we'd be moving more towards kind of full-time in the office. So to be as competitive as possible, I'd say once or twice a week in the office is what everyone should be aiming for. And it's what a lot of other charities are doing, which is great. And in terms of going back to, as I was saying, in terms of those core hours and what that looks like, so the average is around 10 till 2. So it does give that flexibility for anyone who, for example, needs to do the school run at the end of the day, the start of the day, has the flexibility to allow you to do that, and work to kind of, as long as you're kind of getting the work done, you won't have the constraint or the stress of having to get in for a certain time, for example, start at a certain time. As long as you're doing it, and as long as you have that flexibility, then it's perfect. And that's what we've seen in a lot of organizations are adapting to, and equally a 35-hour working week as well, which is really good. So from a survey, again, in terms of what we've done and what we've seen, our digital professionals who are being offered flexi time, who are being offered remote working, and the majority have actually been offered, it seems, flexi time and remote working, which is perfect and is exactly what needs to be done. I think be happy if everyone was at least offered the chance to work a bit more remotely. I know that there are a lot of different organizations have different things in place that whereby everyone has to abide by. However, the flexibility is such a massive part of it that it's something that needs to be done, which is great to see. So I think in terms of that 38% no, I think hopefully within the next year, and this time next year when we come to do this again, we'll hopefully see that reduce even further. How many days do digital professionals work remotely? This is something, again, that we've seen and carried out, and the majority are 3 days per week from home. So again, going back to that more hybrid approach of a couple of days in the office and 3 days per week from home, which is, like I said, I think just the standard across the sector, and it seems to be working as well. Which is great to see. I think the other thing as well, obviously the second, what's interesting to see is that around nearly 25% of professionals work fully remotely. So again, as I said, I think it's important that it depends on obviously location and that sort of thing, and the organization. But it's interesting to see that there are a lot of organizations that are still offering that and still operating in that way. So in terms of, so if we move on then, in terms of salaries, so this is a massive thing. This is something that, these are all the salaries that we've seen based on our placement data for digital professionals in the sector. So as I mentioned, we work across a wide variety of different levels and roles, and as I said, whether it be digital marketing, whether it be project management, analytics, website, even just from officer level all the way up to director level. This is generally what we've seen the salaries, what they look like and what we've experienced. Also included, I guess, a day rate as well, which is very important. And again, I think goes back to what we've said about the project work and the requirement for that. So if you look at a digital officer, for example, it could be like a first job, or it could be like a second job, or that sort of thing. 25 to 35k, which I would say, I mean, for the sectors is, like I said, on average, quite competitive. Obviously, there's a massive jump there, and it obviously depends on the expertise, but we'll again always advise on, depending on what the role looks like and responsibilities are like. Because a digital officer could mean so many different things and encompass, marketing. It could encompass analytics. So it's something to bear in mind. But I think, as I said, a lot of organizations in the sector now are opting for that contract, for bringing in kind of like a contractor on a day rate to get them up and running. And that's the way that for project work, I think it's hard to find someone on a permanent basis who has the expertise to do everything, and especially start straight away. The benefit of having a contractor, for example, is they can start immediately. 99% of the time, they have the expertise to just get to crack on and hit the ground running. There's no upskilling involved or anything like that when it comes to the more senior people and professionals on like on working on digital projects or wherever it may be. And then that in turn, getting someone in on that kind of temporary basis, they can then help and do the kind of like the nitty gritty and the hands-on work, push you forward and get you started in terms of what you need to be doing. And then that then alleviates the stress from, finding someone on a permanent basis for, you're looking for like 120k candidate, for example, and only offering 70, for example. Then that takes away the requirement for the permanent person to, or finding someone on a permanent basis to do everything that the contractor did, for example. Therefore, you can afford to find someone for a bit cheaper, and it becomes a bit more realistic. But yeah, it's definitely a way that what we've seen a lot of organisations are heading in, and it's definitely something that we always recommend. I know that there are budget constraints, obviously, within the sector. However, doing it this way can save a hell of a lot of money from what we've seen, and it's a way that we've worked with a lot of different organizations for a long while. So it's great to see. But yeah, that's that. I think in terms of what we've seen, there's been a lot of, at the start of the year, the more head of and director level positions coming in and kind of leading on the laying out the frameworks and the foundations for these different digital transformation projects. And then we've seen kind of like the contractors or like the project managers or the product managers, for example, coming in and a bit more throughout the year. So hopefully there'll be an increase in that as well, and a lot more opportunities arising. So the last little bit on this for salary, do digital professionals feel they're paid fairly? I think this is a massive thing, and this is based again on what report that we put out. A survey that we put out, rather. I think the fact that 54% have said quite fairly throughout the sector is good to see. Equally, I think generally across the sector, as we've said with the different salaries, I think this is just generally what we've seen standard across the sector. I think there are organisations obviously that pay a little bit more than others, but it's not massive. There's not massive differences, which is why it's so important to look at the other side of things aside from salary, for like in terms of benefits to accompany that, to make yourself to make the role as attractive as possible. But yeah, 54% have said quite fairly. 13%, although it's low, it's 13% of people have said quite unfairly. Again, I think it comes down to organizations being realistic in the roles and the requirements when going out to market, of what that looks like. So, for example, if you're looking at someone who is digital officer, for example, and you're paying them 25k, and you're saying to them, right, you have to have GA4 experience, you have to have this CMS experience, you have to have digital marketing experience, and do this and that and the other. Obviously, they're not going to feel appreciated, and they're going to quite quickly see that is not what they want. So it's so integral to make sure that you are being realistic when it comes to what the role entails and that sort of thing. Equally, 29% are onshore. I think hopefully with these types of talent and salary reports and that sort of thing, hopefully a lot more people will start to see what is the average on the market, and what is the standard, and what should they be paying, and what should they be paid rather. So very interesting to see. So yeah, that is everything. So I hope that was helpful. So what we'll do now is we'll do a Q&A, but I'd be great to connect with anyone who's here. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my email as well. If you have any questions after this as well, feel free to either give me a call, or you can drop me a note on email as well. So yeah, so I think that is pretty much everything. So as I said, we'll do a Q&A now. If anyone's got any questions, let me know. More than happy to answer any questions or anything at all that anyone has about any point. But yeah, just let me know, and we can and I'll answer them. There's, like I said, there's so many key points throughout this that are so important, and it's what people need to be, or organizations need to take into consideration when it comes to this. So yeah, we'll just wait for a few questions to come through, and equally, if you don't have any questions or anything like that, as I said, you've got my email, and we can definitely run through that. So yeah, definitely let me know. Just having a look. It's all good. If not, what we can do, like I said, is I can I'm more than happy to answer any questions or anything like that at a later time. So you know what my email is, you know what my number is now, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. That is where I'll be, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So yeah, I'll just wait a little bit longer just in case anything else comes through or anything like that. Yeah, cool. All good. All right then. Well, thank you everyone for your time. I do appreciate it. Hopefully that was informative. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So what we can do then is, like I said, hopefully connect, and I'll see you soon. Let me know if you have any questions outside of this, and we can definitely catch up if anyone has any questions. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I'll hopefully speak to you all soon.